Welcome to Clicks and Coffee. I'm Alexander, and here we dive deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs and marketing innovators. Each episode, we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and unique strategies of our amazing guests, giving you valuable insights and inspiration. Our goal is to build a community of growth oriented professionals ready to learn, collaborate, and thrive in the ever evolving world of digital marketing. So, whether you're here for the latest trends or looking for that next big idea, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Joining us today is Graham Stephen, the CEO and business expert at bizvalglobal.com. If you are a business owner and want to get investor ready in order to raise money or sell your business, he is your guy. Graham, thanks for being here.
Bonjour, Alexander. Enchanté. Get a chance to practice my French. So wonderful to be here, and thanks for having me on your show.
Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Well, Alexander, I mean, I kind of fell into entrepreneurship almost by accident. I always tell the story that my dad is or was a sort of, I say it in the nicest possible way, a failed entrepreneur. My dad became redundant at 42 years old. He got made redundant, and he started his own business. But essentially, he was self-employed. And at 74 years old, he's still climbing up ladders, fixing things. And he's in a position where essentially, he doesn't have the choice but to carry on working. He doesn't have the option to sell his business and do that. So I started Bizval after spending my first sort of 20 years in various forms of either corporate work or other people's startups. About 5 years ago, the seed was sown, where I started my own advisory business. And we started Bizval because we wanted to help entrepreneurs understand how to build a business that has value, something that you can sell if you want to, and not just buy yourself a job, so to speak. So that's kind of how I got into Bizval. After swearing that I would never become an entrepreneur after seeing what my dad went through. Ironically, it was 42 years old when I eventually made the call to quit full-time employment, so to speak. And the last sort of 5, 6 years, I've been on this journey, meeting fantastic entrepreneurs and business owners every single day. And it's been a wonderful ride so far. But yeah, excited to share some of that story today.
That's pretty exciting. And so, since you're here, can you tell us a little bit about Bizval and how it is different, or what sets it apart from other companies in the industry?
So what we do essentially is we make it, we're on a mission to empower entrepreneurs, and advisors to entrepreneurs, essentially to make better decisions around their businesses, to make their businesses more valuable. So what Bizval does is we've combined technology. So we've used our experience in investment banking, corporate finance, to basically build a tool or build tools that helps business owners understand what is the value of their business, for one, and what are the things that are preventing their business from being investor ready or sale ready. And the technology enables us to do that in a very cost-effective way. And we layer that with what we call the touch. So, a traditional consulting firm would charge a huge amount of money to do this. We make it easy. We speak to the business owner in a language that they understand. So, not complicated accounting language or investment banking language. And we meet them where they're at. And that's essentially what Bizval is about, is understand the value of your business, how to improve it, and how to get it ready to be able to sell it. Just to use a stat, which is often quoted, but almost 85% of medium-sized or small and medium private businesses never sell. And we want to change that. We're on a mission to change that. So that's what Bizval is about. Easy, affordable, understandable business valuations, investor readiness, and delivered in a way that you as a business owner can actually take that, do something with it, and improve your business and take it to a point where you have the option to sell or not, or fall back in love with your business again. And that's in a nutshell what we do.
So it's basically you look at a business and then so help visualize, where you could improve things on really accounting, I would say, or business finances presentation, to make sure people have a full understanding of their business, I would say, on the financial side,
Yeah,
um, and then make sure that way, and then speak the language also of buyers, because a lot of the time, I know that, and I know from experience, because that's how I got into my businesses. I acquired them, and so yeah, so I totally agree with that. It's really nice to have somebody that understands the language and can really help with that. And do you have
absolutely. And I just want to touch on there quickly. It's not just about the finances. It goes a lot deeper than that. I mean, one of the reasons that we ask a bit of a cheeky question to our clients, we ask, what happens if you take a 3-week holiday as the owner of your business? And only 6% of business owners, and we've done hundreds of valuations over the world, from United Kingdom to South Africa to United States, only 6% of business owners can take a 3-week holiday from their business without somehow being involved. And that's one of the single biggest problems when it comes to creating a business of value, is that the owner is the business. They're so dependent on it. So I'm just using that as an example. And I'm sure many entrepreneurs and listeners can relate.
uh,
You know,
I
you want
I
to be on the
agree with
beach in
you.
the
I'm
south of
I'm I'm
France.
part of the 94%.
Yeah,
I'm not part of the 6%. I'm
we're going
working
to have to
towards.
change that.
I know, but it's always a little difficult. So maybe we should have a offline discussion after. Uh, the, and so you said you started the business. You started the business about 2.5 years ago. Do you have any story you want to share, or any recent story you want to share about Bizval and how it helped someone?
Sure. That's always a hard question, because there's just so many stories. And somebody on another show the other day asked me, said, like, yeah, tell me the most interesting valuation you've done. And it's always about the people at the end of the day, the stories and the characters behind the business. I mean, I'll share an example. Where I guess we really helped a client, and it was in a way that they kind of didn't expect. But we had a client not so long ago that came to us. Been involved in their business for, sure, close on 25 years. They'd built it for themselves, and they were hoping to be able to sell this business, retire and go live on the coast. And they came to us for a valuation. And I'm not going to use real numbers, but for argument's sake, they thought this business was worth $10 million. Somebody had said to them, one of their friends on the golf course had said, we think it's a $10 million business, because that was just it was an estimate. And when we did the valuation on their business, it was only worth about $2 million. So immediately there was this kind of sense of like, oh, I've worked so hard my whole life, and this business is only worth a fifth of what I thought it was. Okay. Now, two things happened there. One is, we actually realized that the $2 million was actually a fair number for the business. We also realized that that number could be higher. There were things that they could do in the business over the next 2 or 3 years to actually improve that. Okay. So they had to sit there and said, how much money did they need? When we broke it down, he actually realized that he didn't need $10 million for one. $10 million was just an ego thing. It was him wanting to say to his mate at the golf course that I sold my business for more than yours. He realized actually that he had some work to do. So we pointed out to him, he didn't have an effective sales team in place. Some of his accounting records weren't up to scratch. And some of his pricing was like underpriced. So he had to make some changes over there. But once that sort of shock of like, it's worth a lot less than what I need, or what I think it is, kind of went away, he then actually said, listen, I can get this business over the next 18 months to a 4 million valuation. We pointed out exactly what he needed to do to be able to do that. He went and he did that. And, he managed to actually find a buyer for the business. So we're not business brokers, but we actually managed to find a buyer for that business at $4 million. Why he was comfortable with that, and he didn't feel like he was leaving money on the table, is we pointed out to him, like, what did he actually need? For his requirements going forward, he only needed $1.5 million. So even the $2 million was enough. But he felt that he was getting a fair deal. And, it's a bit of a long story, but I mean, we get stories like that every single day, really, where we can help somebody move from point A to point B, even when it is a difficult story to tell them. I always say we have this saying that we tell our clients, what do they need to hear? Not do they want to hear? Everybody's mother thinks that their child is the most beautiful baby. And that's also a reality. If you're dealing with business owners, you're dealing with emotions. You're not just dealing with numbers. So yeah, hopefully it's a relatable story and a real story to the listeners.
No, that's pretty good, and that's good to also know that you know sometimes the truth is not what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. And
Yeah,
the good thing is like the good thing what I like about your business from what you're telling me is that you don't only tell people what is the situation, but how to improve it, which is great. And in 18 months being able to double the valuation of your company, it's not too bad. So if you have
100%.
any tips for me, I'll take I'll take them. Well, so talking about tips, what is one of the first thing that you tell your clients? So what is one of the what is one of the like the main thing that you see in all the businesses that you dig in and that people always mess up?
So, I'm going to use three things. So the first one I think I've touched on already. That's that sort of piece around owner dependence. A lot of business owners think that they do everything best, and that's the first thing. Is that if you want a business that has value, that's sellable, you have to put in place systems and processes and that to be able to step away from the business so that somebody else can actually run the business. You could potentially sell your business without that, but then often you have what you call an earnout, and I think you're quite familiar with that, Alexander. From our chats, where you don't get money for your business up front. You're reliant on the new owner to come in, run the business, and then pay you from the dividends. So you're taking a risk. It's great for a potential buyer, but for a seller of a business, you don't really want to be in that position. So that's number one. The second thing is what I call, there's two things. One is client concentration. So often, particularly in smaller businesses, 49% of businesses that we look at, it's a big number, are reliant on one or two critical relationships or customers for their business. So if they lose
Wow.
those two clients, they underwater, they're making losses, they're struggling. 49% of businesses. Now, I think what happens is when businesses start out and you land a big client, that's fantastic. But if your business doesn't evolve to like diversify and build other clients, you then almost become like an employee to that one big client. So that's another thing which we see often, and people then need to work on that and address that. Um, People also, the third thing is people often become too hung up on what's happened in the past. So, when they have a conversation around, oh, what's my business worth? They'll say, but we made these profits 2, 3, 4 years ago, maybe before COVID or maybe after COVID. When an investor is looking at your business, they look at the past to see what your track record's been like. But ultimately, they're worried about the future. They're worried about how certain are those profits that you're making now and into the future. So, that's just a mindset shift that a lot of business owners don't always appreciate, is that an investor is looking for, I'm putting in money now. What are my future returns going to be like? If you buy a house, right, you can buy that lovely manor house in the south of France, but if it's, it might have been great in its glory day, but it needs a proper revamp to, be appealing to live in for the next 10 years. So, that's an example. Um, and I think, maybe one last one, and I call this a value detractor, is a lot of business owners neglect things like the accounting records. So, you know, we did we asked this of all our clients. So over 1,000 clients, 47% of them do not have any form of like proper, what I would say, proper accounting records. Okay. And 52% of clients do not have, a detailed budget for the next 12 months or the next 24 months. So both the rearward looking accounting records and the forward looking plans and projections are not there. And that makes it very difficult for a potential buyer to actually assess that business. They'll do the bare minimum what they need to do to make sure they're compliant with tax and all of those sorts of things. So, those are just four things, Alexander. Yeah, you have to dive into each business, but those are the themes that come up time and time and time again. So yeah, hopefully that's useful to our listeners.
Yeah, no, no. So we'll we'll make sure to summarize the main thing. But I agree with you with everything, and not being reliant on the owners is a big one, because a lot of the time owners don't really see that they are so pivotal in the success of the business, and that's one of the main thing, because when somebody's buying a business, they're not buying the owner with the business. So
100%.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 for sure. We'll need to add that in the in the description of the podcast. All right, and so um, we are in a digital marketing podcast, and
Yeah.
even though you're helping people, get better at their business, we help people getting better at their sales and marketing. And so I'm super curious to hear, how do you get clients? How do you market your business? I see that you already have a QR code in your background, which is pretty cool. I think it's the first time that I'm seeing it. And I'll try it, when the video publishes on YouTube. I want to see if it, doesn't lose the resolution to be able to get to scan the code. So that's interesting. Have you ever had people try? And actually, you know what? I can try quickly right now. That's a good one.
Let's make sure it's in full screen. It'll work.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Live
So yeah, I
demo
think
of the live demo of the QR code in it
there's our
works.
lead hook. So yeah, I think, I mean, if I can share a quick story and
Yeah,
just,
yeah, of
in terms
course.
of our marketing journey and our growth journey, because I'll say up front, it hasn't been easy. Um, and if it was easy, as I said to you before the podcast, is that everybody would do it, and there would be no need for the likes of Pantelope and you guys to help clients along the way. Um, but when we started out 3 years ago, quite naively, we thought we're doing something quite novel. Nobody's done quite what we've done. We're going to build a great website, and we're going to switch on the website, and we're going to do a little bit of Google AdWords. So spend money on online ads, and we'll get eyeballs on our site, and we're going to lie in bed at night, and our business is just going to tick over in the background. That was the naive view. And I think a lot of what you read on social media, and particularly pre-COVID and all of those things, is that's kind of how people thought you built an e-commerce business. Well, the reality is two things happened. I think we got like 2 clicks in the first 2 weeks. um, and Google shut down our AdWords account after about 10 days. And we were like, okay, well, now what? And to this day, we 2.5 years in, we still haven't been able to reactivate the Google AdWord account. So we learned the dangers, and why I'm using this is we learned the danger of relying, not that we were doing anything wrong, but we rebuilt the website. We tried to talk to someone at Google. They couldn't really help us. I said, oh well, there's something that our algorithm doesn't like. Fix it. Here's a page of 50 documents. And after rebuilding the website twice and getting all the experts, we kind of gave up on it. But the lesson it taught us is that we didn't want to rely on any one single channel of failure for our business. That's a key principle. Is there a single point of failure? We could have been very successful. Google could have worked for us. And suddenly, what happens if somebody else spends more money on us on that keyword or that ad? Suddenly, we don't have visibility. So it was actually a very good lesson to learn early on. What we then did is had a variety of different channels. So we are based in South Africa, but we serve different markets, the UK, the US. We kind of initially spent the first year just bedding down our local market, understanding, I call it product market fit first, what resonated with consumers. We did a lot of like opinion pieces. So we were adamant that we would write content to build trust. So at the end of the day, we're in the trust business more than anything else. So we didn't want to get sucked into building technical SEO content. I don't know how technical your listeners are, but basically content that brings clicks. We wanted to, put out content there that people like to read. First thing. The second thing is one of my business partners at the time had access to a newsletter distribution of almost 100,000 customers who we were able to do a bit of marketing through that. It was a captive audience, which was great. And then we also built a few things. So we started doing webinars. Webinars were still a huge thing back in those days. So we created a monthly webinar where we would invite people, talk about a topic, engage. And those proved to be very effective because people could engage you, they could talk to you, they could ask questions. And then the last thing we did was kind of old school. Let's identify targets. Who do we want to talk to? Who are potential customers? Pick up the phone, contact them. Now, what's interesting for us is we're a B2B business, but it can be a little bit, schizophrenic in a way, because we're talking to business owners who are entrepreneurs themselves, but we're also talking to the advisors who help those business owners, whether they are fractional CFOs or mergers and acquisitions or financial planners. So we actually have solutions for both. And it took us a while to kind of figure out how do we talk to both of those people without losing either of them. Okay, so our marketing has evolved over time. We then said we're building our own webinars and our own outreach, but we're only reaching our audience. So then when we went international and we expanded to the UK and the US, we actively went out and said, well, if we want to build trust, how do we build that trust with people who already have trust? So we started syndicating with other people in those countries and say, well, we're not just going to have our own webinar, but let's find other people who are talking about buying and selling businesses and building businesses. And let's us appear on their webinars as a subject matter expert so we could amplify our reach to their markets. So, those are some of the things we've done. We've experimented with things like cold outreach and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think for our business, what we're looking for is I think it was the guy from Pamplemousse, which is a French word, I think.
Yeah,
He
grapefruit.
talks about, he talks about his 100, your 1,000 super fans. And I think for us, we kind of on a mission to find our 1,000 super fans. We're probably on about 100 right now, so we've still got some way to go. And the tools, the process, it's critical that you've got somebody who can guide you. Like we help people understand value. For us, we also learning we don't want to make the mistakes that other people have made. Do we get it right all the time? No. Enthusiasm only takes you so far. There's actually a science behind how you need to do that. And now, 2.5 years in, we're realizing that actually we can get to a point, but if we genuinely want to scale beyond that, we actually need to lean into that science, whether it's effective CRM strategies or all those sorts of things. So, I don't want to go too technical and lose the audience. I might have already done that or
No,
in the
no, that's
conversation.
what
But
you're here for, is to learn the
yeah,
tips and tricks.
yeah. So that's very much the journey. And what we've realized is because we're working with so many other entrepreneurs, we actually realize that this journey is the same for just about every business owner that we work with. It's got a different shape and a different flavor. And I'd go so far as to say there's no shortcut to success here. Every now and again, you get somebody who gets lucky and goes viral. I think the danger of social media and LinkedIn and all these things is there's a lot of noise out there. A lot of people who say, "Oh, it's easy. You just do this and you get a million followers and you charge them $1 each, and there your business is great." Um, that's not reality. And if you believe that, you might as well, stop doing business now. It's hard work, it's discipline, requires seeking out the right partners, And some days you kind of think, yeah, yeah, I love doing what I'm doing, but the selling and the reaching people piece can be hard, and even if you're doing the right things. So yeah, hopefully that gives the listeners a bit of a flavor of the journey we've been on, some of the challenges and some of the things we're grappling with right now.
And so you said something that was very interesting, and I think you're the first guest that is really using that tactic, which is webinars. So can you tell us a little bit, because you said that it was like very interesting, and you kind of people are really engaged. Um, how did you like got started on the webinar? So like just one day it's like, oh, I'm gonna start a webinar, and then oh, it's working, and then like let's keep doing it. Or what was the journey to get to where you are today with the webinars?
So interestingly enough, I mean, when we started our business, I mean, we thought it was a novel way of delivering the services that we do. So we had productized, I guess, what was previously a service business. And when we launched our business, myself and my two co-founders, we thought we'll do a webinar to kind of explain what we're doing and talk about business valuation and why it's important and how it all works. And so when we launched our business, we did kind of like a pre-thing. We reached out to all our LinkedIn networks, we reached out to all our friends, we reached out to, a couple of mailing lists that we had access to. A little segue, we've also built our own mailing list, which is not huge. It's 2,500 loyal followers, but and we did the webinar. And back then, people were saying, if you get 20 people on your webinar, you'll be successful. And our first webinar, I think we were using a package called Demio at the time, which was a package. And we took the cheapest option because, we were experimenting. And we got like 200 registrations for our first webinar. So we quickly upgraded to the next package, which could take on 150 people. And surprisingly, like we had a 70% turnout rate at our first webinar. Um,
Wow.
and people were interested. And we had about a 25-minute presentation and a 25-minute Q&A section where we just said to people, hey, ask questions. And that worked really well for us. And then we said, well, look, this was just meant to be a launch thing. Let's get into the rhythm of doing this, monthly. So we probably for the first year and a half, 2 years, did a monthly webinar. We typically would have, I would say, 30 or 40 people who had all the webinars, and then probably another, 50 to 60 people would attend the webinars, just new outreach, people we hadn't seen before. And out of that, we would start to get sort of, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 follow-ups. Can we chat to you? We've got some more questions. So, I'm not talking, gazillions of leads and all of those sorts of things, but for us, those were quality leads. Those were engaged leads. Those were customers who were interested in what we had to say. Um, and I think, sadly, what's happened is the place has, I wouldn't say it's become noisy, but as we moved away from COVID and back to sort of normal life, people have become busier again. So whilst we still have our webinars, we've kind of toned them down to maybe once every 2 months or once every 3 months. And we put quite a lot of effort into getting the right people around that. So yeah, long story, but what I love about it is it's a two-way communication. It also allows you, the platforms allow you to register people so you can get their details. They can sign up to your newsletter. You can run polls. You can do all sorts of really cool things, as opposed to even a podcast is kind of a one-way communication, like we're doing now. People will listen to this. But a webinar's got that two-way engagement, which is just absolute gold. So yeah, that's been our journey, and I think it will always be a core part of our engagement or outreach strategy as we go forward.
Oh, that's super exciting. And so, what is the name of the platform you use for the webinars?
So we've changed. At the moment, we're using a platform called StreamYard,
StreamYard. Okay.
and we use another platform called Demio, Demio. I'm sure you can use Zoom, and a lot of these guys have platforms. At the end of the day, I think you've got to find a platform that works for you. They're all very similar, but certain pros, certain cons. Some allow more listeners, some have better sign-up flows and all of those things. But for us, we find StreamYard works well. It's compatible across all devices, and that's what we're using at the moment.
All right. And then do you use those webinars and repurpose them into podcast after, or
Yeah,
you like?
so really interesting. So this is one of the other tricks that we learned is when it comes to content, is everyone thinks you need to create lots of content. And we did that in the early days. Like we were like scrambling to write a new newsletter content and a social post and a webinar. And then what we kind of said is we're going to use our webinars as our central hook, and we'll create content from that. So our webinar then gets posted on our webpage. It gets posted on, excuse me, it gets posted on YouTube. Um, we take snippets from the webinar and we use those as shorts. Our newsletter theme for the month or the weeks that follow might be insights that come out of that webinar. Um, even potential podcast guests. We were doing a podcast at one stage, which we found we were doing too much. So we kind of said, let's be known for our webinars and our newsletters, and we kind of had to pick a bit of a channel. And yeah, so we reuse, we repurpose. We don't just do the webinars ourselves. We also get interesting guests in at times. And that's been a really great strategy for us, because I think often as a business owner, you know yourself, having acquired a business and being involved in it, is there's just so much to do. So where you can and you kind of use the feedback loop to figure out what works and what doesn't. So one of the cool things of the webinar software is it actually tracks the eyeballs and how long they are actually focused on the webinar for, and how engaged the consumers are. So you can see this webinar had 80% eyeball time, and you can also see how many questions you got. So we used the webinars to see
Oh,
which content
wait.
resonated.
I'm sorry. I'm super curious about that. I'd never heard of that. So, but so do you have everybody's cameras on during the webinar, or it's just like they're on but nobody sees them?
Nobody sees everyone. So the way we do our webinars is completely anonymous. So the only people who can, and I mean that's a funny thing as well, is that the cameras are off, but I think the webinar software or whatever must have
Yeah,
a
ask
thing in
for
the
the
background that,
permission to use camera and microphone. So it's not using the camera for streaming, but it's using the camera for analytics.
yeah, 100%. So I don't know how they do
Oh,
it, but it's a really cool tool as a business user. Um, but yeah, I
and
mean,
can
also
you
like
know
practical things like that.
who is paying attention, or you know just you do just know like there are two people that are paying attention and 19 that are not paying attention, or do you know if
Yeah,
it's
it,
like,
it,
oh,
it
Graham is paying
aggregates it. It
attention and
doesn't.
Alex is paying attention?
Yeah, it doesn't go to that level of granularity. I'm sure maybe in their back end they're able to tell you that, but as a user, you kind of see you had 200 participants, and 100 of them were there for on average 50 minutes, and of those 50 minutes, they were focused for 45 minutes of the 50 minutes. So those are some of the cool
Wow.
stats that you can actually track and monitor. So I'm a bit of a numbers geek, so I love that kind of stuff, and I think if you listen to that stuff and you interpret it correctly, it can help you to kind of, refine your strategy as you go forward. What we also learned, Alexander, I mean, we're talking about, sales and outreach and all of those things, is that just because something worked yesterday doesn't necessarily it's going to mean that it's going to work tomorrow. And I think that's one of the biggest learnings we've had is you're constantly refining and tweaking and adjusting, and that's where I guess guys like yourselves and just full disclaimer, we haven't worked with Pantelope. This is completely unsolicited, but where guys like yourselves help is that you're abreast of the recent trends. You know what's going on. You're able to actually share that. And we have found that, yeah, you need people like that in your corner to help you, keep
Navigate.
abreast of the
Yeah,
current
yeah.
trends.
Yeah, no, that's really the what I love and hate about digital marketing is like literally every quarter things change. And you
Yeah,
look at the Google algorithm updates, and we try to, put out a blog post about that, or like, kind of like our thoughts about each update. But sometimes the updates are so drastic that basically the algorithm update is going to tell you, what they focus on and how to make your website better for Google. And then
yeah,
some people are like trying to play, not to, yeah, to try to trick the game. That works for a quarter or two, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we need to to switch completely. So it's very difficult, and exactly like you said, something that was working last year is not going to work today. Oh,
Yeah,
or
and I think that
differently.
means you have to go back to first principles, right? If you go back to first principles and you say, what problem are you solving for a customer? How are you letting them know that you understand their problem and you're solving that? Um, those things are universal, and then be consistent in your delivery of that, in terms of, and show that I always talk about trust. Yeah, communication, engagement is always about trust. That's actually what it is. Nobody's going to buy from you unless they trust you. Um,
Mm,
so the tools and the techniques are important, but at the end of the day, our view is always focus on those things that build trust and then deliver on that trust. And if you can get that right, and the tactics are constantly going to be changing, then I think you've got a half a chance of building a business which is sustainable and valuable. And it's interesting. It's easy to see that in other people's businesses. When I have my entrepreneur hat on, it's not always as easy, right? So you have to kind of get the battle scars and learn as you go along.
no, no, exactly. And so I heard you said you're a numbers guy. So since you're a numbers guy, I'm gonna have to ask, what are your top three KPIs you monitor in your business in general, or if you have for marketing?
Okay, so my top three KPIs are probably the following. One is we always track our customer engagement review scores, whether it's Google or Trustpilot and all of those sorts of things. Is at the end of the day, I want to have absolutely satisfied customers. And we have a policy that, yeah, if the customer's not happy, and I'm not saying we'll do everything, what have you, it's our role as a business to make sure that we can solve the problem. The customer might not always be happy, but we will solve the problem. Okay. That goes back to what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. So sometimes the reason for them not being happy is not because you haven't serviced them well, it's because
You
it's
service
not
them
$10
well.
million, it's $2 million. The other metric we look at is we think quite religiously about the funnel. So how many people are we making contact with? How many new relationships are we creating? And how many new opportunities are we creating every day? So we have a weekly sales meeting with myself and the team where we kind of look and say, who are we prospecting to? Who are we reaching out to? How are we reaching them? And all of those. And then the third one, very simple, is actually sales. How much revenue are we bringing in? How much of that is converting? And there's obviously variance on that conversion rates and all of those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, unless there's money in the bank, we're not doing a very good job. So if I had to pick three, those would probably be the three that we look at: is how much opportunity are we creating, how much of that are we converting, and then how well are we converting that in terms of, are our clients happy, and does it mean that they will refer to their friends and we'll get more coming back, and all of those. So those are the three, let's call it
Mm.
silver threads, I guess, that we try to focus on.
All right. And do you have any exciting upcoming projects that you want to share with us today?
So I've got lots of exciting projects. I mean, the one thing, I don't know when this episode's going to drop, so I'll try not to use. Maybe the event's already been, but we actually going to be at the Great British Business Show in November. So maybe it's already been, maybe it hasn't. So we're really excited about that. Why? It's the biggest exhibition in the UK of entrepreneurs and fellow business owners. And it's an opportunity for us to engage with, there's 25,000 people over 2 days,
Oh,
engage
wow.
face to face with our clients in the UK, which is a big market of ours, with our UK partners, all of that. So I'm absolutely, really excited about that. And the second thing is we're busy rolling out our partner advisor program, where we actually, we've got a number of partners on board already, but where we providing them with the tools, the fractional CFOs, let's call it the smaller mergers and acquisitions advisors, and we giving them the tools to be able to do the valuation and the investment readiness piece by themselves. And we say we want to make them be the rock star advisors for their clients. So we in the back end, powered by Bizval, and we want to use them. It's a bit like that sticker on your computer that says Intel inside. We want to be that for our rockstar advisors. So those are probably the two things, Alexander, that we're super excited about.
So another marketing aspect of your business is to attend in-person shows and anything that is related to entrepreneurship basically.
Yeah, I think this is we've been as attendees to a number of these shows, and I think it's important to get sort of a feel on the ground, especially when we first entered the UK market about a year ago. I attended one of these types of shows as a delegate, and I think I walked something like 25 kilometers over 2 days over the exhibition floor and just spoke to people and really got to understand the market. So that was really, really important. And it was a concentration of lots of people in the same place. In fact, that was actually an accounting show. And the takeout from that show is that we didn't want to focus purely on accountants, okay, bookkeeping accountants. We wanted to work more with the fraction. So that was a really good insight, which we wouldn't have got from out that show. But this is actually the first show that we're attending as an exhibitor. But absolutely, it is a core part of, I think, touching and feeling the market. Maybe I'm too old school. I'm Gen X, so one of those who still picks up the phone and phones my friends and not just sends them a text. So I think a lot of things work, but a lot of it is also you've got to put your own personal style, and you've got to build the business in the way that's natural to you, as in terms of your style and your leadership. Like if you try to force yourself to be a hard sell salesperson, and that's not who you are as an individual, it's never going to work. Yeah, I love people. I love meeting people. So for me, that energizes me. Even if that doesn't deliver a sale, it creates energy in the business around these events and all the other stuff we do around it. So yeah, that is a part of our strategy, and let's hope it pays off and works in the long term.
Yeah, no, no, for sure. But I think I'll give you a call back and ask. But I know a lot of people in the US. So now that COVID is really over and that nobody cares anymore about it or a risk of it. I feel like people are going back to shows, and I feel like all of those trade shows, fairs, and everything are getting more and more popular, and people want to get that personal touch. And when I say personal touch, is like the face-to-face interaction. You're looking at a lot of businesses, trying to get people back into the
Yeah,
office now, even though some of them promised that they would never do, and then finally change their mind. But I think it's, as you said, things are changing, and you need to change with them. So if you need to, you need to keep up with changes and how people are doing business. We were even talking in another episode about influencer marketing, and some people feel that we're getting at the end of the rope for influencer marketing. So it's still going to work, but it's not going to be the main thing. And so,
mm,
we're going to start seeing some new trends, and that's going to be the next thing. I know we had like TikTok shop that it's doing great, but it might get too much, and like within a year or two, it's done because people are getting tired of opening TikTok, and it's basically QVC on steroids. And QVC is a shopping channel in the US where basically the
yeah.
whole day is like, here is an amazing phone, and with this phone. So, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's kind of feels like that. So eventually we're gonna have to change. We're even talking about AI and how probably in a couple of years companies are gonna have human interaction guarantee, and not like just AI
100%. Yeah,
because
I think people are seeking that. People, I was listening on the radio, giving away my age again this morning, and they were talking about how people are moving back to dumb phones because they want to control their access to social media and be in control rather than be controlled by that. And I think you're right. I think AI has got a lot of benefits. I think if you use AI smartly, you can do some great things with it. But equally, we are human beings, and we love connection, right? And I think ultimately we'll always default to creating connection in some way, shape, or form. And that evolves. And that's what's exciting about the space is, it is never the same. If it was always the same and it was always formulaic, well, I think we'd all have very boring lives, right?
exactly. And so I'm gonna ask you a question that could be an entire other episode, but I want to keep it short. What are you excited about in the world of digital marketing, and what are you worried about?
So, can I start with the second question first? And I'll try to keep
Sure.
it short. What
So
what
you're
what
trying
what
to be
I'm worried
negative and then
about?
positive.
Yeah, exactly. I'll end with a positive. So, as a business owner myself, I did a survey on LinkedIn a little while ago, and I said, how many business owners have had SEO work for them, search engine optimization, and 20% of people said that what is search engine optimization? One of my options was it's a doom loop. So in other words, you can never win at that game long term. And 45% of people said that. So over 60% of people said either they don't know what SEO is or it's a doom loop. Um, and the other 40% were kind of like sitting on the fence. So I'm worried about where AI takes the ability to find you on the internet. Um, and so you're going to have to do something different to become visible. You can't just keep gaming the algorithm. And I'll use maybe a controversial stance. I think what I think the internet used to be, the World Wide Web, was this fabulous open park where anybody could come, put up a picnic blanket, and just have a great time in the park. And what's kind of happened with the internet is it's now been cordoned off into series of private parks. It's like going to, Nice in the middle of summer, and you want a spot on the beach, you're going to pay 50 euros for your sun lounger on the beach. It's no longer this big open. And if you want to succeed in that place, you have to know how to play that game. So maybe that's a bit of a cynical view, but that's what kind of worries me about the world of digital marketing. Okay. What I'm excited about is I'm excited about the opportunities, new types of opportunities to create real connection. So ironically, I think that the sort of people pushing back against AI and pushing it back against those articles that have capitalized first letters, and after the first four words, you realize that it's an AI written article. I think there's a great opportunity for people to kind of re-establish that human connection. Okay, through different channels. It can be through digital channels. It can be virtually. I think the world is a small place. We're sitting here. You in Miami. I'm in Cape Town at the moment. We can have this conversation. So we in the room next door. And this capability has been around for a while. But I think for me that's really exciting. Is I can be doing business in New York, London, Cape Town, and be sitting in a beach in Cancun if I want to be. And for me, that's exciting. I think that creates all sorts of opportunities in terms of engagement and marketing and what have you, which we haven't even begun to think about yet.
No, I totally agree with that, and that's great, and especially when you have a business where you can really operate, I would say, in multiple countries such as yours, and that's exciting because you can reach people within. I don't know what time is it for you, but it's funny. I think it's the afternoon for you and the morning for me, so it's pretty crazy, yeah, when you think about it. Um, all right, cool. So Graham, thank you so much for being our guest. And we'll put the links of the webinar. It was super interesting to see how you managed to grow your business through all sorts of different and sometime with a failure you managed to turn that into more resilient outreach. So that was really amazing talking to you. I wish you all the success for Bizval, and I might call you after and see how your company works. It's always interesting to know.
Fantastic, Alexander. Like wonderful. Thanks for hosting us. I'll try and do it in French. I mean, you sound so sophisticated with the French accent. I've been studying French for about 3 years, and I think I'm probably still at grade one level. So I'll say merci beaucoup, à bientôt, à la prochaine.
Yeah, that is perfect.